The rain started like a whisper, soft and slow, then turned into a roar that slapped rooftops and flooded gutters. In the middle of the storm, a black Prado Jeep rolled through the wide roads of Judeo City, its windows tinted, its engine quiet like a hunter's breath. At a junction near Old Airport Road, 3 police officers stood in the rain, their uniforms soaked, their faces tight. They had received an anonymous call. "Stop that black Jeep. Search the boot. You'll find death." The driver was a man everyone in Judeo City knew, Pastor Dinladi Mako. He wore a white flowing robe, gold rings on his fingers, and a smile that once made people cry from joy. He was the miracle man, the kind one, the giver of food, scholarships, and sermons. His voice was soft like butter. His hands were always raised to heaven. But that day, when the officer knocked on his glass, Dinladi didn't smile. He wound down slowly and said, "What seems to be the problem, my sons?" "We just need to check your boot, sir," the officer said. "My boot?" Pastor Dinladi laughed nervously. "It's just church books and some donations for the poor." "We still need to see it, sir." His fingers trembled. "Let me make a call." One officer leaned in. "No calls, sir. Please open the boot now." The rain paused for a second. Time froze. Pastor Dinladi opened the boot. Inside were 2 cloth-wrapped bundles, still wet with blood, tied with white church sashes. When the officer pulled back the cloth, what he saw made him stumble and fall back into the rain. 2 heads. 2 girls. His daughters. Their faces still held traces of fear, as if their last breath had tried to scream. The silence was louder than thunder. By that evening, the entire city was shaking. Phones buzzed with the news. Miracle pastor caught with heads in boot. Mothers fainted. Men stood in disbelief. People cried and said, "Not Pastor Dinladi. Not him. Not the man who healed my son." For years, he had been Judeo City's angel. He built schools. He healed the blind. He held giant crusades where people fell to the ground, speaking in tongues. He hugged widows. He gave out money. He said, "God loves the broken. I am one of you." But now he was in handcuffs. Inside the police station, his white robe was soaked and dirty. His eyes stared at the wall. He didn't speak. Not when they asked him who the girls were. Not when they showed him the press outside. Not even when his wife, Mama Yana, ran into the room screaming, "Where are my daughters? What did you do, Dinladi?" The officers tried to calm her, but no one could stop that kind of heartbreak. 3 weeks before the arrest, Yana had told a friend, "My girls don't come out of their rooms anymore. Dinladi says they're fasting for power." But nobody had seen them. The house help said, "I was told not to disturb them." And in the church, Dinladi kept preaching, "Power comes through pain. You must give God your best." People clapped. Nobody asked questions. The next morning after his arrest, the front page of every paper screamed in red, "The prophet of death. He killed his own to feed his power." City in shock. How could we be fooled? At the House of Fire anointed chapel, the doors stayed locked. The big white cross on the building looked crooked, like it wanted to fall. Crowds stood outside, crying, praying, screaming. Some brought back their holy oil bottles and threw them at the gate. "We believed in him," one woman shouted. "I gave my life to this church." Others whispered, "What if the miracles were not from God?" And that's when the fear began to spread. What if the power wasn't holy? A week later, a video leaked online. It was a private church meeting, never meant to be seen. In the video, Pastor Dinladi was heard saying, "We must feed the fire. The fire takes and the fire gives. You want children? You must give. You want healing? You must lose something." That is how the altar works. People stopped breathing. He wasn't talking about prayer. He was talking about blood. And suddenly, old memories came back. A girl from the choir who disappeared 3 years ago. a church elder who died in his sleep, a driver who vanished after dropping the pastor home. They weren't just stories anymore. They were clues. That night, one of Dinladi's old friends, Brother Baco, went on national TV. His hand shook as he spoke. I was with him in Bible school. He wasn't always like this. But something changed years ago. He traveled alone to a strange place in Makuru. When he returned, he started speaking of fire and blood price. I thought he was just speaking in riddles. I didn't know. I didn't know it was real. Back in prison, Pastor Dinladi finally asked for a paper and pen. He began to write. He didn't write a prayer. He wrote a confession. My hands are not clean. I sought power. I was tired of being the weak son, the failed preacher, the one who couldn't perform miracles. I wanted fire and I found it. But I gave too much. My daughters, may heaven forgive me. He signed it with trembling hands. By the end of the week, Judeo City was no longer the same. Churches emptied. Pastors were arrested. The government began an emergency investigation into all miracle churches. And in the hearts of the people, one deep question remained. Pastor Dinladi could be evil. Who else? The sky had broken, and nothing would ever be the same. Long before the blood and the headlines, before the cameras and the coffin-shaped silence, Dinladi Mako was just a quiet boy from Tambolo, a dusty town near the north edge of Judeo State. He was the last son in a famous line of pastors. His father was known as Lion of the Word. His older brothers filled stadiums. But Dinladi? He stammered when he prayed. He sweat too much when he preached. People called him the Shadow Son. 16, he tried his first crusade. He told everyone, God will move tonight. A blind man came. A sick child came. A woman in a wheelchair waited, eyes full of hope. Dinladi raised his hands. He shouted. He cried. He begged heaven to come down. But nothing happened. The child kept coughing. The blind man walked away untouched. And the woman in the wheelchair whispered, It's okay. That night, Dinladi went into the bush and screamed at the sky. Why don't you answer me too? When he turned 24, his father died. Church split. One brother took the south. Another took the east. Dinladi was given a small building behind a dusty market. 30 chairs. One borrowed microphone. The people called it Lastborn's Chapel. He preached with passion. He prayed with tears. But the miracles never came. One evening, after another dry service, an old woman touched his shoulder. You have a good heart, Pastor, she said, but people are tired of empty words. They want power. That night, Dinladi didn't sleep. 3 months later, he heard about a mysterious prophet in Makuru, a city hidden in the southern hills where smoke always rose from the trees. People called the prophet Brother Flame, a man who didn't use a Bible but healed with ashes and chants. Dinladi traveled there in secret. What he found changed him forever. Brother Flame lived in a clay house surrounded by bones, animal bones, human bones, no one could tell. His eyes were deep black. His voice didn't rise. Sank. When Dinladi arrived, the man already knew his name. You want what your brothers have. You want fire. Dinladi nodded. You will get it. But fire eats. Fire always eats. Dinladi said, I will give anything. Brother Flame brought out a red pot and cut Dinladi's finger. He dripped the blood into the pot and whispered, The altar has tasted you. Now it will ask for more. Dinladi didn't understand until he was told the rule. Every year, the altar must drink from someone you love. Blood for miracles. Close blood. Dinladi's heart dropped. But why someone I love? Because love burns brightest. And the altar wants to burn. The next week, back in Tambolo, something strange happened. During service, a woman with a bent spine stood up straight. Crowd screamed. 2 days later, a boy who couldn't talk began to sing. The blind saw. The lame danced. Church tripled in size. Dinladi said, "God is doing wonders." But at night he went into the bush and cried. 'Cause he knew the price. That first year he gave the altar his cousin, Joel, a church drummer, kind and funny. Joel went missing. Everyone blamed kidnappers. But Dinladi knew. Each year someone disappeared. Choir girl. A church mother. Close friend. Each time he gave, the miracles grew bigger. People traveled across states just to attend House of Fire Anointed Chapel, the new name he gave his church. Sounded powerful. Holy. Glorious. Dinladi wore white robes, walked with bodyguards, and called himself God's battle axe. He started calling fire down during prayer. The lights in the church would flicker. Women screamed. Men fell to the ground. Social media exploded. But behind the curtains, Dinladi kept a black book. Inside it were names, dates, people he loved, people who would burn. At home, his wife Yana began to ask questions. Why are your eyes always red? Why do you pray in the forest alone? Why do our friends keep dying? Dinladi would touch her head and say, "Do not question grace. The devil loves to make wives doubt." And for a while, Yana kept silent. She cooked. She cleaned. She raised their 2 daughters, Ziba and Tommy, sweet girls who sang like angels. But she kept watching him. And the more she watched, the more she feared. One day, Ziba found her father crying in his prayer room. "Daddy, what's wrong?" she asked. He looked at her like she was a stranger. Then he whispered, "Nothing, my firefly. Go sing for your sister." That was the same month the altar asked for more. Brother Flame had appeared in a dream. "The fire is hungry. You have fed it friends. Now give it family. Give it music. Give it what you fear to lose." Dinladi screamed from his sleep. But it was already decided. He fasted for 7 days. He locked the girls in their rooms and told Yana, "God is taking them higher." Yana begged him, "Let me see them. They're just children." Dinladi shouted, "You don't understand the price of anointing." She wept. She banged on the doors. She called elders. No one answered. In the church, Dinladi preached louder. "When God asks, you give. Even your Isaac." People clapped. But at night, Dinladi's hands shook. He held the cloth he would use to wrap them. And he told himself, "This is for the kingdom. This is for power. This is for God." But deep down he knew. It wasn't for God. It was for his fear of being ordinary. The day he put their wrapped bodies in the car boot, the sky wept. Clouds closed. And somewhere far away, Brother Flame smiled. Dinladi started the engine. He didn't know the police had received a tip. He didn't know it would be the last time he drove free. He didn't know the altar had grown tired of him. He didn't know the fire eats everyone, even the one who feeds it. Inside Jadado Central Prison, the walls sweated with silence. Pastor Dinladi Mako no longer wore white robes. Just a gray uniform with the number 422 on his chest. His cell was small, but his mind was smaller, trapped in memories and guilt and voices that wouldn't stop whispering, "Fire eats. Fire eats." He stopped praying. He stopped eating. Some nights he scratched Bible verses into the wall over and over. "What shall it profit a man?" But the words bled into screams. 'Cause profit had cost him everything. Outside the prison, the world kept shaking. People left churches in fear. Some pastors shut their buildings. Others fled the city. The government launched what they called the Spirit Probe. Dozens of miracle workers were arrested. Ritual items were found in church basements. Animal blood, coffins, chained people who had been hidden for deliverance. It became clear Dinladi was not the only one. But he had been the loudest. Back in Tambolo, his mother fainted after seeing the news. She woke up asking for her granddaughters. When they told her, she covered her head and said, "My son gave God too much." Too much. His brothers, famous pastors themselves, went silent. Their churches emptied. Porters camped outside their homes. "Did you know?" they asked. "Did you suspect? Did power blind you too?" No one had answers, 'cause the truth had swallowed everyone whole. Yana, his wife, left the church compound with just one bag and a framed photo of her daughters. She moved into a friend's one-bedroom apartment across town. Every morning, she sat at the window and hummed the song Ziba used to sing before bed. "Shine, shine, little light, even when it's night." One day, a journalist found her and asked, "Do you still believe in God?" Yana looked up slowly and said, "I believe in pain. I believe in grief. And I believe that God did not ask for my daughters." The journalist wept. In prison, Dinladi finally agreed to meet with the National Truth Commission. The officers arrived with cameras, pens, and files. One of them, a woman named Angela, looked him in the eye and said, "Tell us the truth. Tell it all. And not for yourself, but for the children who died. For the people who trusted you." Dinladi's hand shook. He asked for water. Then he spoke. "I was born into a family that worshipped loud miracles. But I never had the gift. I tried. I fasted. I shouted. Nothing came. I was mocked. I was forgotten. And I became desperate. I found a man named Brother Flame. He gave me what I wanted. But he didn't tell me what it would cost. Or maybe I didn't care. I killed people I loved. I offered them, not to God, but to a lie dressed in holy words. The fire grew, and so did my hunger. Even when I saw the fear in my daughter's eyes, I did not stop. I told myself I was doing it for the kingdom, but I was really doing it for the spotlight, for power, for praise. Now I have none of those things. Only ghosts. Commission left in silence. The nation watched the confession. Some people threw their TVs out the window. Others went on long fasts, begging for mercy. Some cursed the name Dinladi Mako forever. And some understood. Not to excuse him, but to see the truth. Even evil can wear a soft voice and a golden smile. The House of Fire anointed chapel was sealed permanently. Grass grew through the church floor. The altar cracked. The white cross outside turned gray. People stopped walking on that street. They crossed to the other side. They whispered, "That place still breathes." No one wanted to find out what it was breathing. Months later, a documentary was made, "The Ashes of Fire: The Rise and Fall of Dinladi Mako." It became the most watched video in the country's history. Students studied it. Churches warned from it. Families cried over it. And one line stayed in people's hearts forever. Not every man of God is from God. Yana later started a small foundation for children orphaned by church rituals. She called it the Little Lights. Every child wore a white shirt with Ziba and Tommy's names stitched on the back. They didn't have much, but they were safe. And loved. Sometimes Yana still cried. But she said, "As long as one child is safe, my daughters didn't die for nothing." And Dinladi? He never left the prison. He died 5 years later. A heart attack, they said. But some believe the fire finally came for him. When they opened his Bible after death, inside the cover were 4 words scratched in blood. "The altar always collects." This is the story of Pastor Dinladi Mako, a man who chased fire and lost his soul, a man who started as a whisper in the back of a room, but ended as thunder in the heart of a city. In Judeo, the tale still lives on, told to children, to churches, to anyone who believes too quickly in white robes and big promises. Because in this city, one truth remains. Some miracles are just masks. And behind some altars, there are ashes. And behind those ashes, if you have not subscribed to my channel, you might not hear my voice again, but if you are, then you are growing every day. Check my page for more interesting stories. Thanks for watching.